Old man sits outside black family's home daily. The truth brings tears to their eyes. The protagonist, a young black woman named Raven, stands in her living room, peering out the window as she gazes at the old man sitting across the street. Every day, without fail, he has been there, watching their house with a quiet intensity. He never approaches, just sits on the same bench outside, quietly observing. Raven has always wondered about him, but today something feels different. The sun is setting, casting a warm, golden hue across the street, and Raven feels an unsettling sensation growing in the pit of her stomach. Raven has lived in the house for years with her family, the memory of her father's sudden passing still fresh in her heart. Her mother, Marilyn, has always kept a careful watch over her daughter, fiercely protecting her from the world's harshness. But Raven, eager to carve out her own path, has always felt stifled, especially in this small, close-knit neighborhood where everyone knows everyone's business. She dreams of leaving one day, but something keeps her here. Maybe it's the memories of her father, or perhaps it's the sense of security that comes with staying. The old man's presence has always felt like a quiet oddity, a mystery that has lingered in the background of Raven's life. She wonders why he sits there, what he is waiting for, or if he even notices her. However, it is on this day that Raven decides she must finally understand his purpose. The decision weighs heavily on her mind, whether to ignore the strange man or to take the first step and find out the truth. She is torn between the comfort of not knowing and the unsettling curiosity that has been creeping into her thoughts. The moment she chooses to step outside, everything begins to change. Raven walks out the front door, the cool evening air brushing against her skin. As she steps onto the porch, her heart begins to race. The old man is sitting in his usual spot, motionless as ever. His white hair is disheveled, and his wrinkled face holds an expression of deep contemplation, though his eyes seem distant, lost in something only he understands. Taking a deep breath, Raven approaches him cautiously, her footsteps muffled against the gravel path. She stops a few feet away, unsure of how to begin. The man doesn't acknowledge her presence at first, but then, almost as if he senses her standing there, his eyes slowly lift and meet hers. His gaze is steady, intense, as though he's been waiting for this moment. "Can I help you with something?" Raven asks, trying to mask the unease in her voice. The old man doesn't speak right away. He just continues to stare at her, and Raven feels an inexplicable chill run down her spine. For a moment, she wonders if she should just turn around and go back inside. But something in his gaze pulls her in, keeps her rooted to the spot. "I know you're wondering why I'm always here," he says at last, his voice gravelly but soft. Raven's eyebrows furrow. "You've been sitting here every day for as long as I can remember. It's strange." He lets out a small sigh, his lips curling into something between a smile and a grimace. "There's a reason," he mutters, almost to himself. Then suddenly, his eyes sharpen. "Your father, he was a good man. I owe him something. I need to tell you the truth." Raven feels her breath catch in her throat. The mention of her father, his name, his memory, sends a rush of emotions flooding back. What truth? Her mind races, her pulse quickening as she steps closer, unable to shake the feeling she's just stumbled upon something that will change her life forever. Raven takes a hesitant step closer, her curiosity now outweighing the initial shock. The old man's words hang in the air, heavy with a promise that she can't ignore. Her heart pounds as she tries to make sense of what he's just said. Your father, he was a good man. She knows little about her father's past, only that he had been kind, loving, and protective of her and her mother. But there are gaps, pieces of his life that Raven never had the chance to understand before his untimely death. Her mother rarely speaks about him, always choosing to focus on the present. The more Raven thinks about it, the more she realizes that she's never truly known the full story of who her father was before he became her father. Who are you? Raven asks, her voice barely above a whisper. What do you mean, you owe him something? The old man's eyes darken, and he shifts on the bench, as though weighed down by an unseen burden. I didn't want you to know. Not like this, but it's time. He pauses, looking around as if ensuring no one else is watching. Raven glances back toward the house, where her mother's inside, unaware of what's unfolding. The old man continues, his voice barely audible. I knew your father when he was younger. We were in a place, a time, you wouldn't understand. But I promised him, I promised I would protect you. And now, I'm the only one left who knows the truth. Raven feels her stomach churn. Protect me? She tries to make sense of his words, but they don't quite fit with the image of her father she's held for so long. Her mind races, questions piling up, each one more pressing than the last. Why didn't he tell me, she asks, her voice trembling now, betraying the raw emotion she's struggling to keep under control. The old man's face falls, and for a brief moment, Raven sees something vulnerable in his eyes. He didn't get the chance, he says softly. But I can't wait any longer. It's time to face the past. Raven feels a strange mixture of fear and anticipation. She's never heard her father mentioned in such a way, and the old man's cryptic words stir something deep inside her. A nagging feeling that there's more to her family's story than she's been told. The weight of his statement sinks in, and for a moment she's paralyzed by the unknown. Protect me from what? Raven's voice falters as she presses the question. The old man seems to hesitate, his eyes flicking to the house behind her before returning to her face, as if he's deciding just how much to reveal. I'm not sure you're ready for everything, he murmurs, his voice carrying an edge of uncertainty. But you have to understand, your father wasn't just an ordinary man. He was involved in something much bigger than you know. Raven's mind spins as she absorbs the old man's words. Bigger than I know. Could her father have been hiding a secret life? One he kept from her and Marilyn? The possibility makes her feel as if the ground beneath her is shifting. Who are you? She asks again, desperation creeping into her tone. What exactly are you telling me? The old man sighs, his hand trembling slightly as he reaches into the folds of his worn jacket. He pulls out a small weathered envelope and hands it to her. Raven takes it cautiously, her fingers brushing against the aged paper, the faint scent of dust and old ink clinging to it. This is for you, he says, his voice strained. It's the only thing I have left from your father. Inside, you'll find what you need to understand, but you may not like it. It will change everything. Raven stares at the envelope, her heart pounding. What could be inside? She suddenly feels like she's standing on the edge of a cliff, with only the unknown below her. "I have to go now," the old man says, getting up slowly from the bench. His movements are stiff, as if the years have worn him down. "You'll figure it out. But be careful. You're not the only one who's looking for answers." Before Raven can speak, he turns and walks away, leaving her alone with the envelope in her hands. Raven stands frozen, the old man's figure disappearing into the fading light of the evening. The envelope feels impossibly heavy in her hands, as though the weight of everything she's just learned is pressing down on her all at once. Her fingers tremble as she carefully unfolds the brittle paper. A sharp gust of wind rattles the trees overhead, but she barely notices. The letter inside is typed in a familiar font, one she's seen her father use in old work documents. It sends a chill down her spine. The words seem almost too ordinary for the gravity of what she's feeling, but she begins to read them, each sentence drawing her deeper into a world she never knew existed. "Raven, if you're reading this, it means I am no longer here to explain myself. What I've kept from you has been for your protection. There are things about my past, about our family, that you're not yet ready to understand. But you must now know the truth, because it will find you eventually." Her breath catches in her throat. She's been living a lie. Her father's life obscured by secrets he carried to his grave. "Before I met your mother, I was involved in something dangerous, the kind of thing that can ruin lives if it's discovered. People like me, people who once made mistakes, don't always get a second chance. But I made a promise to protect you, and I intend to keep it, even if it costs me everything." The room seems to spin as Raven takes in the words. What had he been involved in? Her mind races, piecing together the small fragments of her father's life that had never made sense. The silence in the letter speaks volumes, as though there's more that's unsaid. She flips to the second page, a map of the city she recognizes immediately. Circles have been drawn around certain locations, some of which are far too close to home. And at the center of it all is a name, one that stops her heart cold. Jenkins. The name means nothing to Raven, but something deep within her stirs, a feeling she can't shake. Whoever this person is, whatever her father had been involved in, Raven knows now that she's at the center of something bigger than she could have ever imagined. Raven's hand tightens around the letter, her pulse pounding in her ears as she stares at the name Jenkins. She flips back and forth through the pages, desperate for more information. But the letter offers no further clues. All she knows is that her father was hiding something monumental, something dangerous, and now it's up to her to uncover the truth. Her mind races. Jenkins. Why does that name feel so familiar? Then it hits her. It's the same name the old man mentioned earlier, the one who warned her to be careful. Could it be possible that this man, this Jenkins, was the very thing her father had been hiding? The thought sends a shiver down her spine. Suddenly, she's not alone. Marilyn's voice breaks through her thoughts. "Raven, what's going on? Who was that man? What did he give you?" Raven doesn't know how to answer. She turns to Marilyn, feeling the weight of the secret she's been holding for years. For the first time, she wonders if telling Marilyn everything will be too much for her to bear. The bond between them feels fragile in this moment, like glass, and Raven hesitates. "It's about Dad," she says finally, her voice tight. "I don't know what he was involved in, but he knew something, or someone. that could put us in danger. The name Jenkins keeps coming up, and I think it's the key to everything. Marilyn stares at her, disbelief flashing across her face. Jenkins? You're telling me this has something to do with him? Raven nods, swallowing hard. Yes, and I think we need to find out who he really was, and why he's been after us all these years. Marilyn's eyes widen. After us? Raven, what are you talking about? Before Raven can respond, the sound of tires screeching on the asphalt outside cuts through the conversation. Her heart leaps into her throat. The feeling of being watched is more than a suspicion now. It's a reality. They are not alone. Raven moves toward the window, her stomach sinking. Her worst fear is coming true. The shadow of danger looms closer, and she realizes that everything she thought she knew about her family, about her life, is about to change forever. The man outside their home, the mysterious old man, the cryptic letter. It's all connected to one horrifying truth. Raven and Marilyn are in grave danger, and time is running out. The days that follow are a blur of fear and determination. Raven and Marilyn work together, trying to piece together the puzzle their father left behind. They track down every lead, every person who might have known about Jenkins. But the deeper they dig, the more they realize just how entangled their lives have become with his. One night, Raven finds herself at a rundown warehouse on the outskirts of town. The same location marked on the map in the letter. The sense of dread that's been following her intensifies with every step. As they make their way through the darkened halls, Raven finally meets the man who has been haunting her thoughts, the man behind the name Jenkins. He's older than she imagined, his face etched with the same kind of weariness that had marked the old man who spoke to her. But his eyes are sharp, calculating. You've come for answers, he says, his voice cold. Your father was a fool. He thought he could protect you, but he was wrong. And now, here we are. Raven squares her shoulders, determination flooding her veins. I want to know the truth about my father. What happened between you two? Jenkins smiles, but there's no warmth in it, only bitterness. Your father was my partner. Together we created something powerful. But when he backed out, he sealed his fate, and yours too, if you're not careful. The weight of his words crashes over Raven, her father's betrayal, her family's involvement in something far darker than she ever imagined. Everything she thought she knew about her life had been a lie. In that moment, Raven realizes the full extent of her father's sacrifices. He wasn't just protecting her from Jenkins, he was protecting her from a world that was too dangerous to understand, and in doing so, he'd made the ultimate sacrifice. He'd left her with the burden of carrying the truth. Tears fill her eyes as the full scope of her father's love and the price of his choices becomes clear. But it's not too late for Raven. She may not have chosen this path, but she will choose how it ends. As the final confrontation unfolds, Raven makes the decision to stand strong for the sake of her family. She will uncover the truth, no matter the cost, and ensure her father's legacy is not forgotten. The truth has been revealed, and though the road ahead remains uncertain, Raven is no longer afraid. She knows the power of family, the weight of secrets, and the strength it takes to face the darkness. With Marilyn by her side, she is ready to rebuild her life, one step at a time. And as the old man's words echo in her mind, she knows she's finally ready to face whatever comes next.